You Wallman and Sundqvist playing tonight?
Yes.
Okay. What are you expecting out of each of them as players?
Well, first off, Oscar, he's a guy who's a real good, what I would call hockey player. That's the term that's been used when I've talked to people that have had him. He's a hockey player, meaning he's got good hockey sense. He's strong on his stick. He because of that, he's a really good two-way player that has ability to play both on the penalty kill and on the power play. So I think he can be a real good addition. One of the best ways to get better defensively is to have good players that play 200 feet. And we've talked about the need to get better defensively, and certainly adding a really good 200-foot player will help that. We can play wing and center. I'll start him probably at wing tonight, but eventually I could see me moving him to center as well, because he is a real responsible down low center. Jake, I'm intrigued by Jake. He's got great skating ability, and one of the things when you have great skating ability is you think of it from an offensive sense as you're growing up and as you go through college and probably earlier in your career. And one of the things I talked to him about is using that skating as a defensive weapon. I thought, and I know actually, Nick Jensen, who's in Washington now, has done a really good job of that over his career. And because of that, he goes out against the other team's best on a consistent basis. And I'm not saying Jake will get there or won't get there. I don't know that answer. But I do know we want to gap off the offensive blue line. We want to end rushes early. We want to give away no time and space. And a guy that can skate like that, I think, can really help that. So his best two attributes are skating and his shooting. And I think I talked about the skating, and from a shooting perspective, we've talked about our D shooting more, and so I told him, make sure you're shooting every chance you can.
And then the size element that Oscar can bring, how do you think that'll help you guys?
Well, that probably goes back to being a good hockey player, and size matters, just the reality. And we had a hard time getting to the net against Seattle, and they got a big decor, and then they make it hard, and we just have a hard time in some of those games. And we're going to face some opponents, whether it's tonight or in the future, that has some real big, strong D. And I think size helps you get to those areas, and size also matters defensively, especially if you're long and he's long.
And then I guess last thing, when you have new guys come into the group, do you do anything to try and kind of help them ease in, or do you just kind of let the locker room do all that?
Well, my way to probably help them ease in is to give them a defined expectation of what I'm looking for and what I want from them, and what and so I try to do that. I met with both of them this morning. Try to start to develop a relationship so they get to know me as a person, I get to know them as a person. Other than that, in terms of fitting in within the room and stuff like that, that's up to them and the players. I certainly wouldn't do anything to try to make that happen. They've got to kind of let that happen naturally, I think, and it generally has.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Danielle or Bruce?
In this last stretch of the season, you've talked about it a little bit, how much opportunity is going to be available for your players, including Wallman and Sundqvist. Can you just speak to that opportunity and what you're expecting out of some of your guys?
I just think, every time, we've got a whole bunch of guys that are at stages of their career where I think they either want more or they want to continue to prove they're good NHL players in one of those two things. And we've got a bunch of young guys that I think want ultimately to have expanded roles and be able to do more. And as I said, the other side of it is guys that are trying to prove they're still good NHL players. And I think, both of those sets of people on a nightly basis will have that opportunity to do it. And, we've traded a couple of good players, so there's some roles open up that way. We've had some injuries, some roles open up that way. And now they got to go out and prove it, and prove that they can help this team win, and not just be guys that can play in the NHL.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Carly Johnston?
Having Wallman and Sundqvist available for tonight without having him practice with the team, was there a lot of thought that went into that, or was that an easy decision with the holes now in the lineup?
It's not ever an easy decision. We try to weigh every decision and put lots into it. Ultimately, every situation's a little bit different. Certainly in a perfect world, you'd have a training camp and a ton of practice and be able to play. But we don't have that. We only have a finite number of games left. I think I think they both in their different ways are guys that could be real assets to our team. So why not get them in right away and let them play? But no, they're not easy, nor are they without thought. We certainly have thought about it and decided this was the best course of action.
Steve Kornacki.
There we go. Yeah, Jeff, I was wondering if you've had time yet to decide who you're going to pair Jake with and what line Oscar might be on tonight.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I can tell you, it's a little fluid, and I'm going to watch a little bit and see what the best pairings are and what the best line is, and so who he starts the game or who either one starts the game with certainly may not be the way they finish the game. It's just the reality of it. Ultimately, I'd like to see Oscar play the wing. I'd like to see him play center. Is that all tonight? I don't know that answer. Our decor, we've had lots of kind of moving parts here in the last little bit, and so we got to decide what's best. And I think Doug Udo does a real good job of starting the game one way, feeling the game out, and then making changes if needed.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
All right, those are all the questions we have for Coach Blashill this morning. Thank you everyone for joining us.